Good morning, everyone. It's been a weekend that I took off, but I'm back. One thing that has happened in that weekend is a lot of camp tournaments, which means the wiki is finally being populated with arguments on the topic. I've read all-ish of them, and I've downloaded them so that I can prep them all out. That's my goal. I hope that in the next few days I can do this. It's very ambitious. Um, and knowing myself, I might burn out very quickly. But I kind of want to try it. I think it'd be fun to, I don't know, try to make a splash again. And I think it's also very useful for other prep down the line to have that as sort of a baseline. I also just want to do it because I think it will change the topic significantly and maybe incentivize people to move in the direction of different kinds of arguments. I think would be useful. So I have written here for myself mostly, but I guess it's useful to share the way that I'm thinking about doing this. And this is kind of how I think about writing prep outs in general, so it might be useful insight. So the tools that I already have at my disposal is I have my background card dump, which is being updated kind of every day. The headlines file as well. I think I want to update that so that I can have kind of extra ammunition for just especially passing the very basic threshold of knowing when an argument is very clearly and obviously false. Having the card dump for the background stuff in the headlines file makes that stuff really, really easy. So if they have like a clearly fake argument, I could just pull out like recent news that I've read and be like, here's an example that proves this is fake. So that'll be a good tool. I use that a lot on the Taiwan topic, for example. For overviews, I want to write some random overviews on both sides that I think are likely to apply to most of the arguments on the other side. The most obvious ones are like deterrence responses and deterrence as a response, or defending deterrence as a response. Plus, there's like the comparative stuff. So, like maybe we will do something worse if we don't do this, or we will do something better, in addition to a bunch of other stuff. So, I think that those also implementation will be a good one. Like, what does this actually look like? Why will it be smart? Why will it not be smart? Why will it be weak or strong or whatever? I think those will all be very helpful for responding to several different types of arguments at once. Um, and then I have just a bunch of possible links to different like advantages and disadvantages, which can be turned into turns. Um, Most of them are on the con, but I think there are several that are cool on the pro, and I'm still thinking of increasing this list as well. This is just like extra random tools. I can look at this list if I'm light on responses on something and just like find some extra ones. And then, of course, different types of defense that I want to fill in as well. For structure, there are a few different things that I'm thinking about, and this is what I think about for every prep out that I write. I probably want to put some responses at the top with independent ballot implications and an overview. If I don't do that, I'll just have those anyway and just scatter them throughout, depending on how the judge is in the round. All of the turns need to have weighing because the turn is kind of useless. It's basically defense if it doesn't have weighing. I'll identify the strongest argument they have first, and then I'll try to make sure that I focus all of my energy on that, both in terms of the responses that I put on it and also how the responses on the other parts of the case apply to it so that I can hide defense that is easily cross-applicable later, for instance. For example, I want the turns on the weaker arguments to apply intuitively to the stronger one as well, and perhaps also the defense. Then I want to go through layers of charity, right? So, like, one of the ways that I do this is try to start with a signpost that is a bit straw man-y. Like, their first argument is that, I don't know, something silly, right? Like, call their argument what it is, make it obvious that it's silly, and then make some responses that clearly prove that it's silly. Then go from there into more of a steelman position, right? So like even if they're right about all of this, it still is not enough to actually give them a good argument or disprove any of our stuff or whatever because of these things. So that layering of responses, I think, is very useful with lots of even if statements in between. It creates more layers they have to deal with, which prevents them from grouping responses easily, for instance. And then always, 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 I will remember the comparative. Like a lot of these contentions that people are writing are not very comparative. They have uniqueness, but they don't really have, they're not really comparing it to what the world would actually look like in any charitable way. So it's very easy to exploit that. And then finally use some mitigation as weighing instead of using it as anything else, especially weighing for turns. I don't know what anything else would mean there. Mitigation is weighing. You just have to use it correctly. Okay, and then types of responses. I'll have some carded responses ideally, with a bunch of analytics. If I can't find cards for every analytic response, then I will put examples on those analytics. I will enhance some missing piece claims. If you haven't watched my video on that from way back, you should go watch it. I think it's useful. I'll be using that a lot. And then indicts and flipping cards to my side. Cool. Process. First, I want to identify and rank the arguments. So maybe like the priority of which layer I think is the most important. Like if they win this, it will be dangerous for me. But if I can turn that, it will be dangerous for them compared to the other arguments they have. Then identify burdens, especially common assumptions between different arguments. If I can just stack responses to assumptions that multiple arguments rely upon, that's the most efficient strategically. Finally, craft some overviews that could respond to multiple arguments at once, maybe using some of those assumptions. Afterwards, I will just brainstorm as many different turns as I can for every argument. And then afterwards, intuitive defense, just analytically, including the general practical solutions. For this, I think this is if I want an offense heavy rebuttal every time, which I do, if I want to make my prep outs really dangerous, then I should be able to push any of my non-uniques into uniqueness for turns, assuming that the turn does apply, which hopefully I can craft it such that it does. Any link and impact defense, I can also push into offense if I use it as weighing on like a disad, for instance, that isn't affected by the defense. And same with the impact defense. I can use that for weighing as well. For the rest of it, I will spam possible analytic responses, defense as well, and just any response that might be true to hopefully get like a huge list of responses and then do some basic research for inspiration on extra ones and back intuitive responses. I'll then cut real blocks with real cards. I'll think of examples for the rest of the ones that don't have cards. ChatGPT is actually quite helpful for researching examples that aren't carded, and then trim, polish, and reorganize. And then finally, just consider some preempts to things that they're probably going to say and make sure that they can't use any cards from their case to frontline any of the responses that I've written. One thing that is useful there is just phrasing the responses as indicts or as responsive to how they might apply their cards. Makes it easier to do that. So that's my strategy. I'll give you one example first. This is just a random team that I found in the wiki. I think this was like some team from an Epsilon lab. They read an escalation with like a scenario on the con with an Arctic spin, and then they read French politics. So what I've done here is I've just brainstormed the first sort of step of this, which is just a million different responses. Some of them you can see have links attached that I want to cut later, but most of them are just purely analytical. It's just like a list of turns primarily. And I think this is a good example of the kind of thing that I want to get started with on every case. So you can look at that if you want. It will hopefully be turned into a real prep out in the next day. Next thing, this document is incredibly good. So I don't know if you know Ryan Lafferty. You should at this point know Ryan Lafferty. He is the world champion, also the national champion in American parliamentary debate and British parliamentary debate. He is still debating next year as part of the Dartmouth team, and he is very smart and has a lot of topic knowledge, especially on nuclear policy. So he wrote this for me, which is now going to you. Thank you, Ryan, which is a topic primer that just talks about all of the background information and theories that you really should know before you actually get into researching the topic on your own. So I would highly recommend reading through all of this. I will be publishing like a 2 hour interview with him in which he actually gives a speech on the PF topic, just I think like in 12 hours or so. So stay tuned for that. But you should read this ahead of that because it will give you necessary context on both that interview and most of the things that we do with experts. You will probably understand far more of the things that you read because a lot of the things that you read sort of assume already that you understand this stuff, which is really great basic knowledge on the topic. I'll probably make an annotated version as well, so stay tuned for that. Okay, finally, extra thoughts to discuss today. Number one, I was asked some more questions on the UK-French agreement. What does it actually mean for the topic? Again, for those of you who don't know, the UK and France just recently agreed to a bunch of different things. Of those, one important one for us is that they agreed to nuclear coordination. I think you can use this on both sides. It is most effectively a non-unique and a thumper. Thumper means like this is a non-unique, but it didn't actually do the thing you said would happen. So it disproves the link, actually. You can use it as link defense, right? Like this is evidence that what you are saying will not actually happen. Whereas a non-unique is like, you are right, what you will say will happen, but it will happen anyway. So you can kind of use it as both. I think it's more effective as a thumper. It's kind of a suppressant on the topic overall that keeps things more realistic. Because whenever anyone is going completely off the rails and making a very wild claim, you can use this as an example of when that claim is not really true. So both sides need to start from a basis of what makes the resolution different to do this comparative. Every link should be unique to the resolution. This is a good reminder of that. We should really already be doing this regardless, but this kind of forces you to do it because a lot of your non-comparative arguments will just lose to, doesn't the UK-French agreement already do that? Um, the most important takeaway from this is that this is not really a unique thing. Like this is quite predictable. And things like this will continue to happen in the future in a pretty predictable way. We don't know what they will look like, but we can predict the general trend. For example, one, on the general current trend, it's likely that military cooperation scales up in the future, that conventional defense spending increases, that we get more modernization of different kinds of arsenals, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then number two, what is likely to happen if the AF uniqueness is true, if the pro uniqueness is true, assuming that they run deterrence, that like Russia is going to keep escalating. This doesn't happen overnight necessarily. And so it's likely that as aggression increases, new types of responses also increase that might look increasingly like the pro, but probably without the EU element, probably without the nuclear sharing element. So how in the world does that look like the pro if it doesn't have either of the critical elements? It probably looks like more different kinds of nuclear posturing, nuclear, cooperation, coordination agreements, which is a good likely counterfactual, and you should be comparing this to what the resolution actually does instead. Okay. Second, NATO trade-off evidence that people are reading. Weird thing about this. So it turns out people are reading the evidence that I originally thought they were, which is this like article, like should Europe create its own independent deterrent? People for some reason are citing this as Thomas Wright of the Brookings Institute. This is not the author of this article. Um, Thomas Wright does work for the Brookings Institute and is, I think, an example that is cited inside of the article. But this is Horowitz who wrote the article. Horowitz and I don't remember the other person. Um, let's see. I'll go dig it up real quick. Um, Public France prep. It's in my background card dump if it loads. So it's this thing here. Uh, I think it's Horowitz and Major maybe or something. Let's see. Horo, wait, come on, please. Horowitz and Major, yeah. So Liviu and Claudia. Liviu Horowitz and Claudia Major. Should Europeans develop an independent nuclear deterrent? And this is the evidence that people are reading. If you actually read through the evidence, I wrote notes on it as well. It certainly does not say that like this will replace the US or that NATO will stop working. The thing that people are citing is this line in it that says, um, like the question is how to develop an alternative without the US trying to get out, which is, interesting rhetorically, but it doesn't actually say that the US will try to get out. And it's not really in the context of the nuclear sharing agreement anyway. Um, I think if anything, like this is a question that your case can just answer. Like the answer is a nuclear sharing agreement, and here's why it won't cause the US to get out. Your card has no, it doesn't even make the claim that the US will try to get out. It doesn't have the warrant for that certainly anywhere in the card. So I'm very skeptical of teams reading this, especially citing Thomas Wright as the author. I don't know why this is happening. Like maybe it's like an error in like one of those citation algorithms. He did not write this, and I think it's honestly a theory violation. Like I think it's so easy to just be like interp, don't cite the wrong author. He didn't write this. It avoids indites because I prepped indites to Horowitz and Major, but you're saying this is different. It's not different. B, academic dishonesty. You're not giving credit where credit is due, especially not to like I don't know, Claudia wrote this, not Thomas. Don't like do that. And then also it's in the NSDA rules. You have to have like you have to be able to produce the correct citation. This is a little bit weird. I think maybe this is drop the debater. I don't know. Maybe it dropped the argument, but I think it's something to talk about. And yeah, I don't think it's the best card for this specific purpose. Developing a common European deterrent, which is what the card is in the context of, is not quite what the resolution is doing. At least, like in the context of the card, maybe they both do this, but in the context of the card, it's largely talking about in this scenario, like developing a Eurobomb, which is like where like the European Union makes its own nukes. It's not really the resolution. So I think it's not the best card to cite for that. You should cite other authors for US pullout. Number three. I think that the more I've thought about it, the more the resolution could be more strongly interpreted by both sides to create more ground. If you focus on the to create an independent deterrent capability part and less on the nuclear sharing part, like I would think about the resolution more as um, the creation of an independent European nuclear deterrent than as nuclear sharing. Nuclear sharing is the method that is chosen to create the independent nuclear deterrent. But I think this is important in your research because lots and lots of different cards are talking about creating independent nuclear deterrents in Europe, sort of vaguely. And very few cards are talking about nuclear sharing with the EU. So I think in your research, it's useful to look into that. Problem is, there are lots of different ways to create an independent nuclear deterrent. And French nuclear sharing is just one very specific one. Most of the authors who are talking about this, who aren't talking about nuclear sharing, are talking about something else that is very specific and very specifically different, and usually differs, between each article's treatment of it. And so it might not be quite, the same as our topic. That said, I think it is ground that gives you a lot of, like it's much bigger research ground when you're looking at independent deterrence. Um, Perception links are good there because they won't depend very strongly on the nature of the independent deterrent. And so finding an article that says if Europe creates an independent nuclear deterrent, perceptually this will do this, I think is very useful. Okay, number four, wiki mining. I've been looking at the wiki. I will look at the wiki more. I have some complaints already. Not all of these are complaints. Some of them are just strategies. But number one, people aren't reading evidence. What do I mean by that? Obviously, people are reading cards. Cards are not always evidence, um, or they do not always function as evidence. What is evidence? Evidence is one, what is a fact that is currently happening just descriptively of the world. Two, some statistical analysis of what has happened in the past, or historical analysis of when similar things have happened in the past. Examples are evidence. Um, Three, projections using particular models, um, like simulations could be evidence, things like that. Um, but none of the things that people are reading, like 90% of the cards people are reading have zero of these things, right? They don't really have proof of anything. They're just people saying things. They're really just people saying things. And those people are not saying things with warrants, or the warrants that are in the cards are not being highlighted. So this is, to me, this is useless. I think you need to start citing actual evidence and start citing actual warrants. Also, lots of these cards are miscut. Like a shocking percent of these cards are miscut. I think that people are misunderstanding what it means for a card to be miscut. Like, there's this sense that, oh, it's okay if you power tag a little bit, or oh, it's okay if you like string together words in a way that is slightly different from the original intent. I think this is just nonsense. Like the threshold for when something is miscut should be incredibly low. Incredibly low. Like, honestly, to me, taking out the word could in a sentence is miscut. I know that that's an extreme position. I will defend it tooth and nail, but a lot of these cards are really egregious. Like if you read the small text, they just clearly don't say what the author intended at all. I think like small nuances here are quite important. So I think people should stop doing this. And I think you should read theory on people who do this, even in cases that don't seem egregious. I think it's really bad. Um, yeah, not a hot take. Number three, be careful about authors citing things that are similar to the resolution but are not quite the resolution, especially if you don't have a good reason why the resolution will also do this. This should be really obvious, but if an author says creating an independent nuclear deterrent by having the EU all invest in nuclear arsenals is bad, and you just cite like you just cut like independent nuclear deterrent is bad. Obviously, this is not the same thing. If they have a very specific reason why this very specific proposal would be bad, and that specific reason is not also true of the resolution, it just doesn't apply to the topic. It's literally just not topical at all. The argument is not topical. The card is not topical. And so you need to be, thinking about that very carefully. I've probably seen like 10 or 15 different cards that are talking about something that is just totally different from the resolution. And the people are citing them just without even batting an eye, as if they are just the same thing as the resolution. So don't do that. Be careful. If you do that, it's okay, right? It's okay to cite something that is similar to the resolution. You just need to acknowledge that it's not the resolution and explain why the resolution would do the same thing that the author is talking about, which is not that hard. But sometimes it is impossible, and in those cases, you should not be citing that card in the first place, right? Um, Next thing is that nuclear sharing is not submarines. I don't know where people are getting this idea from. There is no world in which France like gives a submarine to another country or stations a submarine there. Nuclear sharing is always and has always been air bases. It's always been just the air component because you move your jets and you move your air warheads to their jets in air bases, which is why every single NATO nuclear sharing agreement is air bases. Every nuclear sharing agreement ever has been air. You can't point to me a single nuclear sharing agreement that's ever been submarines. This is sort of intuitive for a lot of reasons because some countries don't have coastlines, and also your submarines are very critical to you. And France only has four. Why would they ever share one fourth of their submarine capability? That would be ridiculous. So yeah, I really don't think submarines change at all with the resolution. And then finally, a big note on this. I've seen that this is a problem that exists across multiple topics in PF, but especially on this topic, I've noticed lots of evidence is being siloed off for a specific purpose without really thinking about what it does for the other things in your case. So, we have this idea that all cards are either uniqueness cards or link cards or impact cards, and they serve that one purpose, and they're sort of like divorced from the other purposes. This is not the case, right? The problem is I'm seeing a lot of people read a uniqueness card that just blatantly contradicts the link, like later in the evidence. Even if it's not the part that you're highlighting, it's still in there. And I'm reading a lot of people who are reading impact evidence and link evidence that is just like non-uniquing itself later in the card. And like clearly at odds with the uniqueness. So there's this problem where people are stringing together evidence and sort of just like cherry picking the part of the evidence in isolation that they want for that purpose. But the rest of the evidence concludes against you or concludes against the other parts that you have. So this is sort of a risk of stringing together different authors who think different things. And I think it makes for very common and very easy blocks. Next things. Two things I want to announce before going to GeoGuessr. Number one, I'm going to do another interview with a French expert on Wednesday of this week with Orlowski. Shout out to him for finding a lot of really good experts for us to interview. So send us questions. You can put them in the comment section here or send them to me individually that you want us to ask or like types of things you want us to ask about, and we can get some expert opinions on that. We're not going to publish the transcript most likely because we agree with, it's probably a little bit controversial to have something that people could potentially cut as a card that is influenced by coaches, but we will publish the videos and you could do what you will with those. I hope that they will ground the resolution more in fact and direct our research in more interesting ways that are more fruitful than just poking around for nuclear war scenarios. Second big announcement is later today, I will be announcing the creation of a coaches tournament, which is very exciting. Coaches tournament will probably be the second to last weekend of August or the last weekend of August. I need to still like test the water on which date works best for people. We'll host it on Tab Room, obviously, and we'll make it a bit of a charity tournament. So it'll have a pretty small entry fee, and we'll donate the proceeds to charity. after we use some to like literally pay for the tab room software and stuff. If you know any PF coaches who would be interested in competing or judging, reach out. All of it will be on the September October PF topic, which we expect to be nuclear sharing. And we're going to be streaming a bunch of the rounds on my channel. And one of the conditions of participating will be that you disclose all of the prep. So the idea of this, I'm very excited about it, is that we will have some more like expert level debaters, especially very in their own like debate niches, who are experimenting with the topic in a lot of different ways and sort of showing you how it is done in different styles. And so hopefully this will produce a lot of very interesting prep that otherwise wouldn't have been produced that people can use for inspiration on the topic. So I'm super excited about that. It's also just like a hype thing to do. So I'm excited to see what happens. So I'll post a bigger announcement about that later, but stay tuned. Okay, without further ado, arbitrary world. Let's see. Okay, what do we have here? This immediately looks like South Africa, I want to say. It's actually kind of weird looking. It is South Africa though, surely. Or no, it's Botswana, right? Yeah, it's Botswana. That makes sense. Anything to say about this? Is this Gaborone or what? I mean, it doesn't really look like it would be the angle of Gaborone. So let's see. It could be, I mean, it could just be like the Kanye Road, classic. It is very white though, now that I look at it. So maybe it's more Mon area. Um, or like one of these roads. I don't know. I kind of like the Mon Road. Let's try the Mon Road. Does it line up? Hmm, ish. It's actually not bad. Let's try it. Yeah. Oh, wow. That was great. That was a very good guess. Boom, baby. Okay, next. What is this? This looks like New Zealand off the bat. Um, North Island, probably. What are we looking at? Do we have any? Does that say Marlborough? I might be tripping. It low-key looks like it says Marl something. I mean, if this is Marlborough, that would be very easy. Um, Assuming I remember where Marlborough is. This doesn't really look like it says Marlborough on second thought, though. Um, it's well, that kind of looks like it does. Oh, wow. I don't know. Wait, where is Marlborough? Isn't it Marlborough here? I think. Like, yes, this is Marlborough region. Okay, but that looks like a city name, not a region name. Like, why would they put the region everywhere? So, in all likelihood, it's just like uh, blah, 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 blah. It's something else, Mar. I think is it Martinborough? Oh, is it Martinborough? Wait, I might be cooking here. Does this say Martinborough? That does not say Martinborough. I don't think it says borough at all, like any kind of borough. Does it? And I don't think it says Martin. That looks like a B right there. That it looks like it says Marl. Okay, I don't know. I'm tripping here. I might just click Marlboro and see what. I mean, what does it look like? That's probably what I should actually be looking at. And what is the angle like? Angle is this. Is it just Blenheim? Blenheim. We have mountains all around, which kind of fits, except that we have mountains over there, which doesn't fit. Hmm. That's kind of out. I kind of like Wellington area more, arguably. I mean, it's not going to be either. Realistically, it's going to be like something totally different, but let's just try it. Okay, wait, it was Marlborough. Oh, wait, it was this thing, Murchison. Okay. But it did say Marlborough. I should have just clicked Marlborough when I saw Marlborough. That is kind of on me. What is this? This looks like what, Indonesia or something? Jimbrana. Wait, Jimbrana is a thing. Wait, isn't it? Wait, Jimbrana's over here, right? Wait, Jimber. Wait, where's Jimbrana? I swear Jimbrana is somewhere. Bro, I should learn my Kabupatans. I thought Jimbrana. Wait, where's Jimbrana? Wait. Where where is Jimbrana, bro? I swear it's around here. Okay, this is clearly Java though, right? And we have okay, is it over here? No, it's Java. It's there. There's Jimbrana. I knew it was around there. It's Bali. Okay. Wait, we have a street. Can we find the 5K? Econ House. I mean, this is going to be so hard to find realistically. We can kind of line up the mountains. Oh, this is going to be so hard to find. Um, I don't even think they're all going to be labeled. Oh gosh. I don't think it's worth it to look. I mean, that's just not that's just not good content. That's just not good content. And yeah, it was up here anyway. Yeah, that would not have been good content. It would have been like 5 minutes of me just looking for a street name. This is Tunisia, obviously. We're on the coast, which we could line up. Which coast is it? I mean, is this down here? Like Gabe's? How many Gabes? Mini Gabes. Um, I don't know that I like that. I don't know Tunisian area codes. Sorry, sue me. But this goes around. Ooh, this curves around. That looks like a city that curves around there. Which kind of, it already makes sense for that, but I don't know if it's that big. Like Loki, this might be something smaller that we're looking at. Um, ooh, and is it this one or is it this one? The perpetual question. Or is it just this monastir stuff? Because that could also be a cook, but it feels like it curves around more than that. Like it kind of boomerangs, and this kind of just like goes that way. Um, maybe it's Gabe's. Maybe we're Gabing. Are we Gabing or are we monastering? I'm gonna Gabe. Ah! Okay, whatever. Whatever. I knew it. Whatever. Have to throw sometimes. Okay, this is south. Is this just New Zealand again? Uh, I think it might be right. If I am sane, this appears New Zealand like. Um, I hope I am correct. I seem to be. North Island, right? Right. Right. I think you go North Island here. Like I think you just slam over here. Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay. Happy about that. So there you go. 23-5. We'll take it. We'll take that. Spent a little bit too long on some of these rounds, but that's okay. I hope that was entertaining for you. And tune in next week, next day, tomorrow, for another prep update. See you later.